If life had a sense of humor, it sure loved using me as the punchline. One moment, I was biking home after a lousy day at work. The next, I was sprawled on the cold asphalt, heart pounding like a war drum, staring into the eyes of the guy I hadn't seen in over a decade. And those eyes, they were looking at me like I was the center of his goddamn universe. I didn't know whether to thank him or ask why the hell he was holding me like he thought I might disappear. Ethan. My voice cracked like a teenager's, which, by the way, was humiliating considering I'm 26. Hey, Caleb, he said, his voice deeper, steadier than I remembered. But there was something else in it too, a tremor, a weight I couldn't name. His arms tightened around me for a beat longer before he helped me sit up. My bike lay a few feet away, its front wheel bent at a sad angle. The truck that had almost made me roadkill was nothing but red taillights disappearing into the distance. My brain was still trying to catch up with reality. I should have been dead. I should have been. What the hell just happened? I managed. You weren't looking, Ethan said, brushing dirt off my sleeve like it mattered. Like I mattered. Truck came out of nowhere. He stopped, jaw flexing. I couldn't let anything happen to you. His words hung there, heavier than the autumn air. I blinked at him. This was Ethan Hayes, the boy who used to live next door, the kid who taught me how to climb trees and then laughed when I fell out of one. He left when we were 14, and I never heard from him again. And now, here he was, standing in front of me like some kind of dark knight. Except instead of armor, he wore a leather jacket that smelled faintly of cigarettes and rain. And he was looking at me like, no, that wasn't possible. Thanks, I said, my voice thin. He gave a short nod, but his gaze lingered on me like he was memorizing my face. It was unsettling. And something else. Something I didn't want to name. The ride home was quiet, except for the sound of my uneven breathing and the occasional crunch of leaves under our feet. My bike was too mangled to ride, so Ethan insisted on walking me home. He didn't ask where I lived. He didn't have to. So, I said finally, desperate to fill the silence. When did you move back? Last week. His tone was casual, but his shoulders were tense. Like every word cost him something. Bought the old house. The one next to mine. He nodded. Yeah. Of course. Because fate apparently had a sick sense of humor. We reached my porch. And for a second, I thought that would be it. Thanks for saving my life. See you never. But Ethan didn't move. He stood there, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, eyes flicking to mine and then away like he was holding back something dangerous. You should be careful, he said finally. This town's not what it used to be. I almost laughed. It's Maplewood, Ethan. The most exciting thing that happens here is the annual pumpkin contest. His jaw tightened. Just trust me. Okay. And then he turned and walked away, leaving me with a head full of questions and a heart beating way too fast for comfort. That night, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, those same blue eyes from my childhood. Only sharper now, edged with something I couldn't read. I remembered how we used to be inseparable. Summers spent catching fireflies, winters building forts. And then one day, he was gone. And I never knew why. Now he was back, saving my life like some goddamn hero in a leather jacket. And I didn't know whether to thank him or scream at him for leaving in the first place. And underneath all of that, there was this tiny, terrifying spark of something else. Something that made my stomach twist in ways I didn't want to think about. Because when he held me on that road, when his arms wrapped around me like I was something precious. I felt safe, wanted, and maybe just maybe I didn't hate it. The next day, I found myself looking out the window, watching as Ethan worked on his porch. He had a hammer in one hand, nails in the other, and a concentration that made his brow furrow in the most distracting way possible. God, when did he get so built? He used to be all elbows and knees, but now his shoulders looked like they could carry the world. I hated myself for noticing. I hated myself even more for wondering what it would feel like if he looked at me the way he used to look at sunsets, like they were the only thing that made sense. But he didn't look at me. Not then. Not until later. When he did, though, it was like the whole damn world shifted. I told myself I wouldn't go over there. I told myself I'd stay out of whatever storm was brewing behind those blue eyes. But that night, when I saw the glow of his porch light still burning close to midnight, my feet betrayed me. The air was crisp, smelling faintly of pine and something else, danger. Maybe, or maybe that was just him. He didn't seem surprised when he opened the door. If anything, it was like he'd been expecting me. Caleb, he said softly, like my name tasted good in his mouth. You couldn't sleep. I admitted, hating how small my voice sounded. Figured you couldn't either. He stepped aside, and suddenly I was inside, surrounded by the faint scent of cedar and something darker. Masculine. His house was barely furnished, just a couch, a coffee table, a few boxes stacked in the corner. It looked temporary, like he wasn't planning on staying. And for some reason, that stung. We sat on the couch, silence stretching so thin it could snap any second. Finally, I said, "You left without saying goodbye." His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. But then, "My dad," he said, voice low. "He wasn't a good man. When things got bad, Mom and I had to go. No time for goodbyes." I swallowed hard. That wasn't the Ethan I remembered, the boy who always laughed first, who made me believe summers could last forever. "I wrote to you," he added, almost bitter. "Every damn week. Letters I never sent. You want to know why?" I stared at him, heart hammering. "Why?" "Because I thought you'd forget me. And if you didn't, if you waited, then I'd owe you something I wasn't sure I could give." The words hit me like a freight train. My chest ached with something fierce and unrelenting. "I didn't forget you," I whispered. His eyes lifted to mine then, and what I saw there made the air disappear. Hunger. Guilt. Longing so sharp it could cut glass. "Caleb," he said, and it sounded like a warning, or maybe a prayer. And then he kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was years of unsaid words and stolen glances and two hearts colliding like they had no choice. His hands framed my face, rough palms warm against my skin, pulling me closer like he'd die if there was an inch of space between us. I kissed him back. God help me. I kissed him like I'd been waiting for this moment my entire damn life. When we broke apart, breathless and trembling, he rested his forehead against mine. "I shouldn't have," he murmured. "You deserve someone who's not broken." I laughed. A shaky, watery sound. Newsflash. Ethan, we all broken. Some of us just fit better together. Something in him shattered then, but not in a bad way. His shoulders sagged, like he'd been carrying the weight of the world and finally decided to put it down. "I don't know how to stay," he confessed. "But for you, I'll try." That was all I needed. Not promises. Not forever, just the truth. So we stayed there, on that worn-out couch, tangled in each other like the years hadn't happened. Outside, the first snowflakes of the season began to fall, quiet and relentless, blanketing the town in white. And for the first time in a long time, I believed in second chances. 3 months later, Maplewood in winter looked like a postcard white rooftops, smoke curling from chimneys, kids laughing as they built lopsided snowmen. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, watching as Ethan cleared the driveway next door. He caught me staring. Of course. He always did. And like always, he gave me that half smile that made my knees weak. "Quit looking at me like that," he called, leaning on the shovel. "Like what?" I shot back, grinning. "Like you're planning trouble." "Maybe I am," I said, stepping down the porch. "You gonna stop me?" He dropped the shovel, and before I knew it, his arms were around me, pulling me into a kiss that tasted like warmth and winter and everything good in the world. When we broke apart, I whispered against his lips, "You stayed." He brushed a strand of hair from my forehead. I soughed. "Told you I'd try." And just like that, all the years we lost didn't matter. Because right here, right now, we had everything. Everything that mattered. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.